Today I am going to be talking about my decision to stop using birth control and how I've been able to manage since stopping the use of birth control. Hey everyone, it's your girl Ivy. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time viewing, welcome. So for me, the original reason why I started on birth control was to minimize my cramps. I was not having sex at the time I started. I just was at a place in my life where my cramps were crazy, like debilitating crazy. And they put me on medication for it. I was on like a really high dose of naproxen. And then my doctor recommended just going ahead and putting me on birth control. And they said that me being on birth control would cut my cramps in half at least. So I went ahead and did that. And it was great. I was on birth control from 18 until I started going to my OBGYN. Was like, when was that? That was like when I was around maybe like 21. And so I was on the pill. Everything was great. I had no issues with the pill. But when I did go to my OBGYN and she found out that I get migraines with aura, she said that I should immediately stop because apparently for those who get migraines with aura, they are at risk of getting a stroke due to the high levels of, I think, estrogen in the birth control. And so she started kind of giving me other options because I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to stay on the pill, even though I've been on it for a long time and run the risk of getting a stroke. But I also don't want to be out here at risk of getting pregnant if another form of contraceptive fails me. So we went through the options. There was getting on the strictly progesterone pill, but with that, it's like you can't miss it and you have to take it like at the exact same time every day for it to actually be effective. And so there was that option. Then there was the option of getting an IUD, and an IUD is like this T-shaped contraceptive that they put in your, is it your uterus? I don't want to lie to y'all. Yeah, I feel like it's your uterus. Yeah, it's your uterus. They put it in there, they place it there, and it's supposed to, the one that I was on, it was supposed to be effective for 3 years. So she gave me those options. There was also, I think there's one that you can put in your arm, but with all of those different options, I didn't want to do the progesterone because it's like, I know I'm not going to be taking it at the exact same time every day. There may be days where I forget to take it and I try to catch up, and if that's not going to do any good for me, I don't want that. I didn't want the one that you put in your arm because I heard it made you gain a lot of weight. I didn't want to, what other option was there? Oh, the other option was the IUD. And she was like, oh yeah, it's quick placement. You know, some people say it's not that painful. Others say it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's not bad. So I was like, okay, well, a birth control where I don't have to worry about remembering to take a pill. I don't have to necessarily worry about gaining weight. Apparently it'll reduce my periods. So some months it could get to a point where I don't necessarily see a period, and I'm like, okay, great, because I don't want to have to deal with the cramps and the moodiness and all of that. Sign me up for the IUD. So when I went in and I got the IUD, it was one of the most painful experiences ever. Like literally, I was squeezing onto the nurse's hand so tight and tears were coming down my eyes. That's how painful it was. And I'm like, if I would have known it was this painful, I would not have done it. But that was over. I had it in. Cool, right? I'm like, bet. Like, I'm not about to deal with crazy periods anymore. With the birth control previously on the pill, my cramps had died down like greatly. So that wasn't something that I necessarily had to worry about. And yeah, I thought I was good. Only this IUD started to create severe, sharp cramps for no reason at all. Like, and when I say no reason, it's like I'm just going about my business walking and suddenly the sharp cramp hits me and it causes me to double down. Like, that's how bad it was. And so the first few times it happened, I wanted to go to the OBGYN and figure out what was wrong. So I went to her and she, did the little ultrasound, and she looked and she said, well, it's perfectly placed. It hasn't moved. Sometimes what can happen is that it could move out of place, and that can cause cramps or discomfort, or it can just come out completely. And she was like, no, it's sitting there. It's just fine. So I don't really understand why you're getting these cramps. So just kind of go on about your business. Well, I was still experiencing these extremely sharp cramps, and it got to the point where even when I was having sex, I would find myself experiencing these sharp cramps out of nowhere as well, and that just made it was just a very unpleasant experience. On top of that, when it came to my periods were coming like back to back. For me, usually when it comes to my periods are pretty short, like 3-4 days, and then my period is over with. Well, on the IUD, my periods were lasting over a week. I possibly went like 2 weeks on my period, and then it would go off, and literally like 2 to 3 weeks later, I'd be on my period again. It felt like I was constantly on my period, and I was told that this IUD was supposed to kind of decrease my periods and shorten them, or they would go away, and I was experiencing the complete opposite. And once again, I decided, okay, this doesn't feel right. I don't feel right. I'm going back to the doctor. I went back to my OBGYN. She checked me again and said, it's fine. There's nothing wrong. Like, it's in there. It's not like you have any cysts forming, fibroids, none of that. Like, you're good. I don't understand. And finally, it was just like, I cannot deal with this pain. I can't deal with these long periods. You're saying nothing is going on, but my body feels like something very bad is going on. And I don't want to keep this in until something horrible happens, until I am in the emergency room or worse. So I decided to go ahead and get it removed. And the only other option that I was somewhat open to was the progesterone birth control pills. So I went ahead and filled a prescription for that, and I started, and then I started to do research and try to figure out what other methods I could use to prevent myself from getting pregnant without having to be on birth control. Because something that I fear is the long-term effects of being on birth control for a very long time. Once again, I had started at 18 on birth control, and I decided I've been on it for a very, very long time, and me not being able to be on the regular pill that I was on to having to get this IUD and now going to progesterone, like, I don't even know what exactly are in these medications, and I fear not being able to have kids one day, because ideally that's something that I would like to do one day. I want to have kids, and I don't want these contraceptives to have a negative impact on my health. So I did my research and I found something called the Rhythmic method. And with the Rhythmic method, it's really based on tracking your cycle, and that's how you are able to determine when you're ovulating, meaning when you're the most likely to get pregnant, when you have low chances of getting pregnant, being able to track when your period is going to start. And there were other methods, such as, like, you could take your temperature, and based on your temperature, that kind of lets you know if you're ovulating or not. Like, if you're over a certain temperature, I guess your body temperature rises when you're ovulating. There was that. I bought a thermometer. That didn't really last very long. Thankfully, something that I started doing before I decided to get into the Rhythmic method was tracking my periods, because once again, I was having periods like back to back, And for that reason, I wanted to track it so that I can show my doctor, like, hey, this is what's going on. This is not normal. Help. And so that was vital in me doing the Rhythmic method, because then I decided to download an app which would help me track my period, and it would count the days of my cycle and help determine when I'm ovulating and when my period would start. I downloaded an app called Flow, F as in Frank, L-O, and one of the questions it asked was for me to kind of like put down my last few put the days of my last few periods, the start and end dates, and based on that it would calculate or try to estimate when my cycle would be starting, when I'd be ovulating and all of that. And I've been using that ever since, and literally that tracker is on point. Like if my period does not start the exact same day that it says I'm going to start, it starts within a day or two of it saying that I'm going to start my cycle. And obviously, you know, for reasons such as like stress or maybe a change of diet or something, that can cause things to shift a little, but it's never to the point where it's like completely off. And another huge thing in terms of determining understanding the Rhythmic method is understanding your body. So being able to see understand the changes in your discharge and what that means. So if you're experiencing like a clear, stretchy, almost like egg yolk discharge, more than likely you are ovulating. That is your body preparing itself to receive a sperm and help the sperm get to that egg. I hope this is not TMI for some of y'all, but if y'all chose to click on this, you knew what you were getting into. Yeah, so that's one of the key indicators that you are ovulating and your body wants you to get pregnant. So when you're ovulating, if you don't want to get pregnant, do not have sex on those days. Okay, don't have sex around your ovulation days. The Flow app is great in saying like 3 days before your ovulation, 2 days, 1 day, estimated ovulation day. And those days are days that you want to avoid having sex. You want to avoid having sex because that's when you're most likely to get pregnant. And then once you pass the ovulation phase and you're leading up to your period starting, that's when you have the lowest chance of getting pregnant. Now, I would still recommend using other forms of protection, i.e. condoms, spermicide, even the pull-out method for some of you who like to live your life on the edge. This tracker has changed my life. I feel like I just feel good. I feel like it feels good knowing that my cycle is coming naturally. It's not being controlled by a medication that I'm taking. One thing I absolutely used to hate when I was on birth control was me missing the pills for a few days and it triggering my period to start again, or spotting. Like, I hated that. It was cool though when you wanted to kind of like push your period off, like, oh, I'm about to go on this vacation, I don't want to have to deal with that, let me just keep taking my pills so my body won't go into, you know, menstrual mode. But that's why I decided to get off of birth control and use another form of birth control, i.e. the Rhythmic method, and it's worked wonders. I have not been on birth control since 2017, so 2 years now, and I haven't gotten pregnant. Your girl is still baby free, you know what I'm saying? And it's also great to know that if I am ready to have a child, I don't have to worry about birth control wearing off of me or anything like that. Like, when I'm ready, I'm ready. And when I'm ready, I'm better prepared because I know when I will be ovulating. I know when I'll have a better chance of getting pregnant. If you want more information on the Rhythmic method, if you want me to dig deeper into this, I'd love to continue sharing my journey and giving you key tips on how to stay in tip-top shape, health-wise, and Also, how to make sure you stay baby free without necessarily having to take birth control. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, if you've ever heard of the Rhythmic method before, if you are using the Rhythmic method. Share your testimony in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, also, I wanted to say shout out to Babe. He bought me this new ring light and I absolutely love it. For this reason, I will likely be recording on my couch more often versus in my car, just so I can get a good use out of this. But thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.